Welcome to Tips for the Transition, where we have deep, meaningful conversations about life. We talk about how significant changes like divorce, grief, and career change can affect us, our family, our relationships, and our work, and how to move beyond them. I'm your host, Maria Tomás-Keegan, certified career and life coach for women, and I'm here to support you through the messy seasons of life so you can answer big questions like who am I now and how do I move on from here? If you're ready to consider new options, be inspired, and meet incredible women who are on this life journey with us, you're in the right place. You'll find something in each episode to give you hope and encourage you to move from panic to powerful, from rocky to resilient, and from upside down to right side up. This is Tips for the Transition. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us for Tips for the Transition, the Career Roadmap podcast. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, your host. And as a career coach, I help professional women who feel stuck. Together, we position them for the career they really want that fulfills them and creates more harmony in their lives. Because when your career isn't a soulful fit, it becomes a soul-sucking experience. So in each weekly conversation we have here with an inspiring guest can be a resource for you to become more confident and resilient and brave, and to make the moves you want to make with more ease and grace. So if something strikes a chord as we're having this conversation and you want more information, check out the show notes below for contact information for my guest and me. So one of the things I love to bring to my audience are alternatives, ideas about different ways to approach your career that you might not have thought of or that you've dismissed because of a belief that you have about it. So today, I want to introduce you to the franchise fitter, Diane Pleuss, who since 2004 has matched hundreds of people with their perfect fit franchise opportunity. Now, when you think of franchises, the first thing that comes to mind might be fast food. But as Diane will tell you, the options go far, far beyond burgers and fries. When she finds the right fit, she then successfully guides her clients to avoid rookie mistakes and does all this at no cost to her clients. And as a result, they create wealth, make an impact in their marketplace, and enjoy the systems already in place to accelerate their path to progress, to success. I'm excited to break the misconceptions around franchises. So let's get started. We call this episode A Perfect Fit Career Alternative. So I want to welcome Diane. Hello, Diane. How are you?
I am fine. Thank you, Maurice, so much for inviting me to your show today. I'm very much looking forward to it.
It's my pleasure. I'm really excited about this conversation. After you and I first talked, I thought this is a perfect episode to bring to the audience because there are so many people out there who maybe misunderstand about franchises and who are looking for alternatives and don't really know where to look. So I'm really happy that you've decided to join us. Now, I want to ask a question. You say your process is like a Disneyland fast pass because it gets you to the places you want to go efficiently and easily. So let's first describe the kind of women you help and what stage of life or career might they be in?
I enjoy working with women and giving them options and presenting opportunities to them. Too many times, I think we're told or we believe that we need to get the good education, get that good first job, and then everything will fall into place. And we don't really think of additional options other than a traditional job. As women have families, have children, or have responsibilities with maybe elderly parents, time can be a problem coordinating all of that. And having a business where you can have more control, i.e., more flexibility, really has a great deal of appeal, not only to younger women, but especially to women 50 plus that have experience and want to have the results of their hard work come back and benefit them. So it's having your own business, specifically a franchise, is another option.
Okay, so you said women 50 plus. Let's just talk about what other scenarios they might find themselves in. So, somebody might be downsized from a corporation, right? And they're looking for other alternatives. That happened to me, and I didn't want to go back into the corporate world. So that would be an option to consider, right?
It certainly would. I've worked with a variety of women. One woman comes to mind, and she got into business because she was going through a divorce. She had worked at a parochial school as a part-time music teacher and realized that it was going to be very difficult to raise her two sons on that kind of income. She had no business background, but she saw a business, specifically a franchise, as an opportunity to benefit from her hard work and effort. So I worked with her. We looked at several different options. She was determined. She had this zest for life and being involved in the community. She invested in a franchise, and that was quite a few years ago now. She initially bought one territory, went back and bought a second, and then a third. It's a large franchise with over 1,000 franchisees, and she is in their president's club. I believe she's in the top 25. She had no background in the specific industry, but she had a willingness to learn. She had a willingness to excel, and she had that why of what she wanted in a business.
That's great. All right, so let's talk about what types of franchising opportunities exist for women.
Well, there are many different options, some things that you might not naturally think of. And sometimes women kind of gravitate to this because they will stand out. So it could be some crazy things like, for example, a handyman service. Now, with a franchised handyman service, the person is not the technician, is not the handyman going out. The person is comfortable hiring the techs, the handyman, the painters, the plumbers, the electricians, any of those people in the category. But they want to provide a service to the community. They like that they will be helping people. They know that many times when you send a capable, competent handyman out, that many times that person will have a long list of additional things that need to be done. And they're so happy that someone shows up on time, that they can do the job as quoted, and they can build a successful business that people are going to call them again in the future. Many times the technicians just want to do the work. They don't want to talk with Mrs. Smith in advance or do the scheduling or have the website. They just say, give me the work and let me go. So it's a nice combination. Other things that might be a little crazy could be something automotive aftermarket. It could be emergency services where you're dealing with fire or water, mold restoration. It could be tutoring. It could be senior care. It could be other types of residential services, such as residential cleaning. There again, they do not want the person to be doing the cleaning. They want the person to be involved in the community, hiring the cleaners, and running and scaling a business.
That's terrific. Okay. So what these women are doing, I love that you just said that, because when I think about my own misconceptions about franchises, I always thought if you were the owner of the business, you had to start the business by being that, right? The handyman, the house cleaner. But what you're saying is you're really walking in as the CEO of the business,
Exactly.
right? And you
Ex-
are hiring people to do the work, and you're managing the business
ex-
aspects.
Exactly. There's a
Wow.
phrase that you might have heard in franchising that you're working on the business, not in the business. If
Exactly.
you can open up your mind to think of additional opportunities, for example, there are franchises that provide roofing services, gutters, insulation, irrigation, lawn care, pool care, pet care.
Wow.
Now, you don't have to have a swimming pool to have a lawn or have a pool service. You don't have to have a lawn yourself to have a lawn care business. It probably helps, but nonetheless, you're looking at it as the owner of the business and you recognize that there's a need and you've got a franchise that has the infrastructure to help with that.
That's great. Okay. So let's talk about the options that exist for women who want to keep their current job for the sense of security that brings, but diversify her earning potential. Tell us what that would look like.
Sure. Those are what we call manager run businesses. So the person does keep their job and they hire a manager to run the business and they manage that manager. Usually these are what we call multi-unit options. So usually you'll open up one location the first year, a second location the second year, a third location the third year. And by that time, you're usually cash flowing nicely and can say, gee, do I want to continue growing and scaling my business and say goodbye, or do I want to keep it? It's a nice transition strategy. It's a nice safety net if you're an industry that is susceptible to downsizing. Some of the companies might be fitness. There again, they are not looking for you to lead a fitness class or necessarily be in fabulous shape. But you look at that business and you say, I can run it through a manager. I like that it's a membership model. I like that I can grow and scale it. And when I hit that break even number, a great deal of that revenue falls through to the bottom line and directly benefits you. So that's one example. A hair salon is another one. There again, the owner would not need to be licensed in cosmetology, but they should be leaders. They should be a person that is comfortable hiring and managing stylists. And there again, they would probably open up one and continue to grow it. Some of the franchise salons, the average owner has 6 studios and the big guys have 100. So it's a totally different way of thinking about it. We are breaking away from the confines of a job that's very defined and saying, let's look at your skills and what you bring to the table and combine it with a strong franchise company to give you another option.
Okay, so you just mentioned skills. So I want to dig into that just a little bit. What types of skills are franchisors looking for in their franchisees?
They are looking for someone who is coachable, someone who appreciates a guide and can follow it, someone that has that fire in the belly and says, others have gone ahead. I can do it too. I can figure it out. I can learn. I can do it. Not everything is going to be easy. They're going to have to be resilient and have a little bit of grit. Someone who is a leader, someone who is comfortable hiring, managing, training people. Also, someone who likes to be involved in the community is another big plus. Of
Okay,
course, someone who understands financial statements, another plus there.
that would be a plus for sure. Yeah. But all of that can be learned as well. And what I love is what you said is that um, the franchisors don't leave people hanging. They come in with back end systems, right?
They,
And
yes,
models to follow. And if you follow the model and it has been proven as a successful model, and you love the business, or you love being in that business, I would imagine that this could be a win-win.
absolutely. So the franchise company should have the systems and the infrastructure in place, the digital marketing, etc. One of the very nice things about franchising is you get to investigate it. It's pretty transparent. So you're going to be learning about all of these things from the franchise company, usually through a series of calls, mainly Zoom calls. And then you get to talk to existing franchisees
Yeah.
and verify everything that you have learned so far. So you can ask the existing franchisee, so when you went to training, what was it like? And when you got started, how long did it take you to hit break even? And does the franchise company continue to support you years into the business? So you get to learn and verify. Sometimes people don't take advantage of that. Sometimes they fall in love with the business, and if it's a solid one, okay. But I think it's best to go in with questions and eyes wide open and verify everything to make sure that there aren't any surprises and that you're going to be happy and successful, because that's the outcome we all want, and making money, of course.
Okay. So I'm sorry, I've got to take a sip of water. Hmm. So I have a question for you. You call yourself the franchise fitter. How do you find the right fit for people? What's the process you go through?
We have a defined process. We start with an online questionnaire. It's 4 pages. It only takes 15 or 20 minutes to complete, and it allows people to get started. Then we do a consultation call, and that's an in-depth call, usually a good hour and a half. And I ask people to block off 2 hours to make sure we have enough time and that I can answer their questions. During that call, I want to learn all about them, what makes them tick, what is important to them, what are their goals, their skills, their interests. Someone might want a business and they want to grow it aggressively and sell it. Another person might say, I want a business and I want to work with my spouse or my partner. I want to build a legacy. I want to have something I can leave my children. One person might say, I really want a lifestyle. I made it to that corporate office, that corner office, and now I want to catch up on all the things that I missed. So I need to make a certain amount of money, but I really want flexibility, and I that lifestyle is so much more important to me. So I'm going to be asking all kinds of questions to learn about the person, and then knowing the franchise companies. And every company has a bit of their own culture and way of doing things, so that I can again match the person with the company to make sure that there's territory available and that's a viable option. I like to ideally present several options, 3, so they can compare and contrast. I might present one option that is a lower investment, one that's a mid-range, maybe one that's even a stretch investment if they're comfortable with that, so that again, they can learn about the business. There's no direct correlation between what someone invests and what they can make. So that's a myth that we're busting right there also. Um, but by spending some time up front with the person and their spouse or partner to gain input allows us to start going in the right direction. And then I like to have weekly calls with the person to make sure that they're getting the information that they need, that it makes sense, that they're understanding it. I can, again, help to answer questions. And if we're not going in the right direction, let's talk about it, and let's look at some other options then. But let's dig in and start to get the facts.
I love that. It is such a mm, it's like it's like dating. It's as you were talking, it struck me as like finding, being on a dating app, which I've never been on, by the way, but what I hear is that it's a pretty robust set of questions that dig into who you are, what you want, what your expectations are. And I love that I love you that you call yourself the franchise fitter, because if it's not a good fit, I talk about careers being a soulful fit for
Right.
women, for anyone really.
Right.
And a business like this becomes your career, and it also has to be a great fit.
When you reference dating, you have no idea how similar that is. And sometimes we use that analogy. So when I bring companies to a person, we call them a candidate because our services are free. I say it's a bit like I'm going to show you several blind dates here. And I want you to have a couple of phone calls with each franchise company, each blind date, so you can get to know them a little bit.
Yeah.
And then we're going to narrow it down so you don't go crazy and can focus a little bit. And as we go through the process, your second date might be having coffee and you're learning a little bit more. Maybe you're learning about the training program and you're liking this. So then it might be like going to dinner and having a longer conversation and meeting more people. And at the end of the process, there is a day called Discovery Day or Meet the Team Day or Confirmation Day. And that would be similar to meeting the parents. You're verifying everything, you're asking the last questions, you're confirming everything. And when a person goes forward and invests in a franchise, and again, good companies award a franchise, then I am there hopefully throwing the bird seed and wishing everyone well. So there's a great similarity with dating and the fitting that I do, the matching that I do.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a process. It is absolutely a process. So I wonder
It
if
is a
some of
process.
I'm sorry.
I just repeated it. It's a process. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. Um, I wonder if some women who are listening might be wondering about um, the kind of the investment. And I know this probably ranges widely, but what kind of investment are we talking about? For what's the range that
Sure.
we might be talking about here?
Well, everyone tends to think that you need $1 million because we tend to think of big food, and
Yeah.
that is very expensive. When we're looking at a franchise, there are several costs involved. There's the one-time franchise fee. That can be as low as, let's say, 15,000, and it could also be above 100,000. Most franchises, let's just say, are in the $50,000 category.
Okay.
So a very, very average there. Again, one-time fee.
Okay.
Also,
Okay.
keep in mind that most people do not come to the table with a satchel of cash. Just like you invest in a home and you have a down payment, likewise with a franchise, most people
Huh.
come to the table ideally with about 30%, sometimes 20% of that investment, and they finance the balance through an SBA loan or they look at a retirement rollover program. There are a variety of options. So we have the
Okay.
franchise fee, and then you're going to need money to get started, working capital, and that's money that you'll need to go to training, money to get started in the business and promote. Franchising is highly regulated, so every company must give you amounts for a minimum of 3 months. So that will vary by company and, of course, will vary by market size. But they might say in a small market, maybe you need a few $1,000s a month for working capital. In a major market, maybe it's $10,000 a month for working capital, but they will go through that and detail that with you.
Okay. And you help walk people through all of the options, the financing options, give them all the information so everything is totally transparent. They know what they're
Um,
walking into. They have
yes,
this
yeah,
dating process that they can go through without making any commitments.
exactly. And it's very
I
much
love
of a
that.
two-way street. So the franchise company is also looking at that candidate. They want to make certain that the person is going to be a stellar business owner and give the service and expectations and live up to all those standards. So good franchise companies award a business. If anyone does not make it, it would be terrible for that person, but it's also a black mark for that franchise company because they have to disclose if anyone does not make it. So if you're looking at a franchise company and you see a list of closures, that is not only probably a yellow flag, in my opinion, that's probably a red flag. So each side is evaluating to make sure that it is a good fit. And while we don't have a crystal ball, we can look at past experience and let that be our guide.
I love that. I love that. Okay. I think we're busting through a lot of myths here. So, um, we just recently are and still are in this pandemic situation. So, how did franchises as a whole, sure, this is a generalization, but how did franchises weather that storm?
Well, I am very proud of the companies that we work with because I think they have really stepped up and offered more communication and looked at what they could do to help their franchisees. So some companies, for example, hired someone that had a financial background just to help their existing owners fill out forms so they could have access to the PPP money or the EIDL programs. Some franchise companies helped with renegotiating leases. They looked at contacting vendors to see if they could get better pricing. Some of them reduced the advertising requirement. Some of them reduced the royalty required. Just about all of them increased their communication with sometimes weekly calls, bi-weekly calls to say what was going on and what was happening. So when you talk to some of these companies, you go, wow, they weren't out there on their own trying to figure things out. And again, it's not only the franchise company helping, but you also have all of your other franchisees, all your other neighbors, and they can help as well. Back when I worked for a franchise company after 9/11, we immediately set up calls with some of our franchisees that were doing very well because some were hit a lot by that, and we talked about that. So we shared best practices, and sometimes when business is cruising along, you forget some things. So it really was an opportunity for companies to step up and really help. Some of the fitness companies provided options online, and they were in person one day and they were virtual online the next day. So it's really, in many respects, they have great stories to tell. And sometimes the news is looking for something that's going to bring in viewers, and they talk about all the trouble some of the restaurants are having. But keep in mind that there are other businesses, again, particularly service-based businesses that were deemed essential, that did very well. And they're not touting that because they don't want to, they're simply providing that service. They're not taking advantage of the situation, but they were able to stay open and provide services.
That's a really great story. I like that story. And that's it's encouraging that there is some stability in and you said like you said some are essential services. Another thing
Right.
that the question that popped up for me as you were talking is this idea of being able to work remotely. So do most franchise options require a brick and mortar store, or facility? Or are some of them, are there many of them maybe, that can be run out as a home-based business?
There are many options that do not require what we would think of traditional brick and mortar or traditional retail. However, many of them might be able to start from a home office, but more than likely they will want the business owner to start from a small office suite. And that usually is just because of Google Analytics and being able to get more eyeballs to the website by having that location.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And there again, think in terms of, let's say, a senior care business where you're hiring the caregivers that are going out to the homes and providing the service. Most of the time, the business owner is starting in a small office suite, one that is convenient, usually has free parking, and it can be small. And as they grow and scale and hire more caregivers and hire more office staff, they may actually outgrow that office, but they can then move to another office suite. And the person who is receiving that care at home, they don't really care where that office is located.
Right.
They just know that they've got a caregiver that cares for them, appreciates them, shows up on time, and provides the needed services. So there again, you're matching your office with the revenue coming in, and it just makes a great deal of sense.
I like that. There just seems to be a lot of flexibility around this. There are a lot of choices. There are a lot of industries that we could explore. It might be something you've never thought of before. That is franchise. It's out there as a franchise. So why would you say is now a good time for for women to explore franchises as a means to business ownership?
Well, with people working at home, not everyone misses the office politics, not everyone misses the commute, and they recognize that they can contribute more. So I think women are looking at more options. It certainly makes running a household or caring for children easier if you don't have some of that commute or some of those other things. So that's one reason why people are looking at business ownership. In fact, the Small Business Association has said that they have never had more loan applications because people are broadening their perspective and they want something more. Money is available, money is still cheap. While hiring can be a challenge, many of the franchise companies, again, assist with that. And when we look at some of these businesses, particularly a service-based business, usually you're starting with a couple of technicians, a couple of painters, a couple of caregivers, a couple of tutors, a couple of residential cleaners, and you're growing and scaling it. So that's a lot different again than starting a major restaurant where you might have to hire 75 people at once. So again, we're somewhat walking before we're running, and it's very manageable, and you can have that core and you can build on that. So those are a couple of reasons, and there are just many more options available that I think are so much more interesting um, and exciting.
Well, yeah, and I love that. I believe in having options. I believe in having alternatives and exploring the possibilities that are out there. Because, as you just said, it's exciting to know that there are who, you may never have thought about being a business owner, but why not? Why not explore it and see if there is a fit for them out there that is a good fit in an industry that they could love, that they might have, thought about. I mean, I just think about one of my passions is interior design, accessorizing, and staging of homes. So I wonder, I've never explored this. Is there such a franchise out there?
There would be options that would be somewhat close to that.
Okay.
And let me also just say, if we don't limit ourselves and we look at options, in my opinion, it's still a win-win, because if a person determines that a business is not for them, hopefully they go back to their job with a new commitment and a new zeal and zest, because they say, you know what, this job, it fits me better and I'm going to
Yeah.
stay with it. But hopefully they will then be happier in it. And if
Right.
it's not, they're making the choice then to go with the business, and it's their choice. And we know that when we make that decision, we usually go forward with confidence, and we work it.
And it's based on actual fact, right?
Yeah,
So we've explored things, and for that person who is working in a job, exploring franchising as an option and not and realizing that it's not for them, the job that they're in is not the be all and end all
right,
either. So then they
right.
come, if they're looking for franchises, they go for you. If they're looking for finding a soulful fit in their careers and it's not franchising, they come to me. So,
Exactly. Yes,
right.
yes.
All right. So, Diane, with every episode, we end the show with practical tips and strategies that you can share with our audience so that they can walk away with some information that they can actually put to good use. So that's why we call this show Tips for the Transition. So, what's your first tip?
My first tip is to keep an open mind.
Ah, love.
There are a number of options available. It's not just a job. And I think the pendulum is swinging back to business ownership. Maybe 10, 15 years ago, it was more corporate, and now we're seeing that shift. So keep an open mind and explore what's out there.
Absolutely. That's number one about so many things in our lives, right? Just keep an
Mm-hmm.
open mind. Don't, just open the aperture a bit, take the blinders off and explore what's out there. Okay, what's tip number two?
Tip number two is do a self analysis. Look at your skills and look at your why. What do you want to accomplish? How would a business help with that? So be honest with yourself. When I worked for a franchise company that did packaging and shipping, sometimes the men would love that they could make crates or custom boxes for things, and that would be exciting. But nothing happened until that sale was made. And if they couldn't fulfill that function, they did not have a good business. So be honest with yourself, with the time that you can invest and with your skills.
And what you want out of it. Yeah, absolutely. Self-assessments are really, really good for so many things. Do you have a third one?
The third one would be ask a lot of questions and do a good investigation if you look at a business. Take your time, talk to people. One caution would be sometimes people talk to their next door neighbor and say, I'm thinking about doing this business. What do you think? And that next door neighbor would never do a business, and they're concerned and they say, oh my gosh, I had an uncle who lost money, and oh, I don't think that's good. So make sure if you're getting opinions that you're talking to other business owners or someone who knows you, who knows what your goals are and what you're trying to accomplish. Otherwise, there will be many people that will torpedo your dream.
Yeah, for every person you ask, you'll get a different opinion. Yeah. So
Yes.
that's a great one to end on because it is so important in everything we do in our lives to surround ourselves with the people who support us, who understand what makes us tick and what is too much risk
Right.
versus a calculated risk,
Right.
and that will advise us from a place of knowing,
Yes.
not from a place of trying to save us from ourselves, right? I love the example you gave, someone
Mhm.
who who has seen another experience and really doesn't know themselves,
Right.
advising you to, steer clear because
Mhm.
it's too risky. Yeah. So surrounding ourselves with our best advisors, what I like to call our personal board of directors.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. Diane, this has been this time went by so fast. You shared so much great information with us. I really want to thank you so much for being here and sharing your passion. It's so obvious that you are very passionate about helping people find a way to get into business ownership that is well informed.
Exactly. It's my pleasure, and I think that you have such an incredible, important role when you're talking to people in their careers and helping them and assisting them, and again, understanding them. Um,
Yeah.
so I think we're all looking for a little bit of direction, and that world changes. So we need some guidance.
Yeah. Yep, and there are people like you out there, and that's why I like to bring you and people like you to this show because I believe that everyone needs options. We need to know that there are alternatives out there that we may never have thought about.
Yes.
And yeah, so all right. So I know there are going to be some people who want to reach out to you, ask you some questions directly. So tell us what the best way for them to connect with you is.
The best way is to go to quickchatwithdiane.com and schedule a call. They can also go to my website, dianepleuss.com. Diane is with one N. My last name, Pleuss, which rhymes with choice voice or Rolls Royce, is spelled P as in Peter, Leuss as in Sam, Sam. I post regularly on LinkedIn. The advantage of adding the tagline, the franchise fitter, is if you can't remember how to spell my name, you can simply put in the franchise fitter and you should be able to find me. And
Oh,
I
that's
post
great.
regularly on LinkedIn so people can again get additional information and get a feel for me and how I like to work.
That's fabulous. There's so many ways for people to connect with you. I love that. Diane, thank you again for being here with us.
My absolute pleasure. You're welcome.
All right, and I want to thank everyone else for watching and listening. I appreciate that you're a part of this community. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a comment or review. And if there's a star rating available to you, click one of the stars and let us know how you liked it. So, as I said at the top of the show, I love creating and sharing resources for professional women who feel stuck in their careers. So, if something in this episode resonates with you and you'd like to get a fresh perspective, I suggest you reach out to me or my guest. And there, excuse me, plenty of ways for you to do that in the show notes below. And if you want to continue this conversation, you can join my private Facebook group called the Career Transition Roadmap. And the link for that is below as well. So let's meet again here next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Because you know what? I believe it's our time to thrive. So let's thrive together. Till next time, I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, helping you turn transition into triumph.